Hi, being. I'll start the show with a song. New you. That's a song that's being shared to become more aware, to hook up with the real guides in the real universes. And if a person sings new you before they go to sleep each night for like 15 minutes, and for 15 minutes or so when you wake up in the morning, it shows that the real guides that you are sincere about wanting to become more aware about life, why you came here. This new presentation that's being presented, shared on Earth at this time by Dwayne Hepner, who has wrote the New Adventurist series of books that are available at lulu.com. I'll read a little bit of one of the new books so you get an idea about what's being presented in them. I now had a sense of true knowingness, and our communication was through a more refined way of telepathy. This is great. I immediately recognized. I could tell that Heather was doing fine with the transition. For those who only see the mind as the all-knowing instrument, it would be hard for them to understand what else there is. But the mind is a mechanical vehicle that is used in the lower forms of life to make a particular contact with the material world. The mind has no power of its own, only the illusion of power and control. The Kalam God, ruler of the second heaven of men, is an example of the power of the mind. It is his job to create a deception with his influence, and I must admit that he is good at it. His kingdom is for those who need to be taken care of until the day comes when the U-tune meets the real universal guides. In this experience, I am not sharing all that I went through, including some of the governor gods that reside between the two heavens of man. When Rebazar took Paul on this journey to the Is, he describes his experiences in the Tiger's Fang book he wrote. I suggest you read his book and keep in mind that Paul used the God idea at the time, which D.G. and Harry were to move away from, but they never had the awareness to do so. When D.G. and Harry were given the opportunity of the real position, they were to earn their way, but instead they decided to take on Paul's title and pretend they were the masters, kind of like kids wearing their parents' clothes, and the clothes do not fit, as this was an experience I saw with Harry. This area is a real change from the confinement of the mind worlds of Kalam. For me, it was the great experience of walking out of the darkness into a world of wondrous light and untold beauty. Here, the lovely music of violins dominates the sound everywhere, moving sweet melodies through the ethers and penetrating all that exists. I was overwhelmed with such a feeling of gratitude because of the fact I was finally able to leave the lower bodies behind and start my ascension into the first stages of reality. Heather was closely examining the surroundings as we started to gently fly over the beautiful, surreal terrain of hills and valleys. This area was full of awesomely lush vegetation and a great openness. This area of life is like a fantasy of sorts, as everything is so subtle and flowing. Rebazar guided us along, then had us stop at a certain location that only the real guides knew about. It was a lovely setting that was very secluded. We followed RT, and he showed us a way into a hillside that was not accessible to everyone. When we entered the place, we instantly experienced an enormous library-type setting. There were a few people who were going about collecting the secret knowledge they wanted for themselves. I could actually feel the knowledge that was present everywhere. All about me were seemingly endless rows upon rows of knowledgeable material. RT said this place contained some of the universal files that mankind has been in search of since the beginning of his time. A person has to earn the right to enter here. Those who are of a very low nature, such as the warmongers and the hostiles who justify their existence to misuse this information, will never find it. This is one of the many places which hides the greatest knowledge of the lower worlds. Only those with a pure heart and being can enter here. Through the sound and light of this region, we were experiencing all the knowledge of the worlds below this one. It is hard to describe the difference between where we are and how the material worlds operate. RT said that it takes many lifetimes of training with the real guides for a person to eventually come to this point in their attainment and awareness. From this position and experience, I had accomplished a wonderful knowingness that I knew was possible. We were in a region behind the mind and senses known to those who are struggling the most on the rock worlds. At this point in my experience, I was perceiving the knowledge here and would soon recognize how to use it with what I would be presenting with the new presentation. After coming out of the secret location, Heather said, "I'm a lot smarter than I've ever been." Then she laughed with us. "What did you learn?" I asked rather jokingly. "Well, I don't really know yet, but I do know. That's the funny thing. I know what it is, but words don't really seem to apply." "Huh, I really can't explain it," she remarked as both of us laughed. At this stage of the experience, we were starting to get into the areas of our real being, unlike the mind and its involvement with reason and logic that only exist in its own realm. We were now in a much freer position, enjoying the real experiences without the hindrance of the mental faculties. There is no real freedom within the mind world, only a constant sorting out of events, one from the other, and the illusion of resolving many particulars. The mind is based upon capacity, as is a computer. Therefore, the mind can never really resolve anything in the true sense. It can be useful in a sense of certain mechanics, as is one's car a vehicle to use, but not for exploring the real universes and all of the true reality itself. I was enjoying the sound and light of this level so very much. There are many worlds and regions here, which appear to be rather gigantically egg-shaped, like Paul had described in his journeys, and each one has their own Lord that governs them. The creations that one may experience here are of such a wide variety, where everything is so beautiful and without any decay. R.T. pointed out that the illuminated states, which are sought by the mystical paths, are usually on the lower levels, and it is here that the real you beholds itself as what it truly is. R.T. said that the idea of a spiritual path was something that was devised by the belief system. They invented the terminology and documentation, then perpetuated it for others who followed, and thus what has come about is the same ideas which have produced the New Age teachings. He said the real guides are only interested in what is real now, and not the old labels that the controlling systems of the lower worlds use. During my experience at this time, I was learning a lot, and as I look back at all this, what I am providing today comes from some of these events and so many others. For one to have these journeys, they must have a real focus. It is quite obvious that people are into labels and authority figures, I said. That is correct, R.T. said. That is how the bigger minds control the smaller minds, through marketing and manipulation. There are very few who want to experience reality as it truly is. The belief systems have created the fear and intimidation to control the minds of the masses, and then hold them in certain levels which they overrule. No one can control the great reality. They can only control others through agreement. As soon as the agreement is given up, the control is over with. I could see that Heather was listening very closely. She was taking everything in so gracefully. From the level we were on, I had a much better understanding of what I had been experiencing on the earth. I was now in a position of real living and being. All around us, the colors in this realm were incredibly vibrant. The greens, yellows, and whites are the most predominating colors. It is hard to fathom this area when comparing it to the earth, where dust, dirt, pollution, and the resounding unnecessary attitudes are rampant. The overseer of this vast realm exists in an area that is devoid of all agitation and encumbrances. The real you can experience the calm of itself from this area and then proceed higher into the upper levels of life after taking part in this region. He lives overlooking these vast regions he manages and has the ability to know all there is to know by a true and direct perception. He is in the position of gaining instant access to any knowledge that he needs at any time. Some call him the Sacred One, and also by many other names, said R.T. As we flew closer to our destination, we were met by a group of lovely escorts that flew gently with us as we approached. I would say they were more than any angel I ever saw. When we came to the ground, they led us casually to the place of the Sacred One of this region. It was a small beach-looking shack that was rather green and bluish in color and was positioned in a simple landscaping of green trees and various natural floral arrangements. I really liked this place. because of how naturally everything revealed itself to be. Being a surfer, I love things simple, like the sun and the ocean. As we approached, I could hear the sound of the ocean as though there were waves coming to shore. I could smell the freshness of the air and the aliveness of this place. My experience was wonderful compared to the old polluted earth and the created consciousness of all the dumbed down people. RT telepathically told me that every symbol from every language from all the life levels below is located in this region. We walked up the small hill to the little shack as a wonderful, brilliant sun was gleaming in the vast sky. It bathed the surrounding terrain with its life, revealing spectacular colors and arrangements that were set in place everywhere. RT said this Lord had manifested all the lovely surroundings just for our special visit. Heather was so bubbly and enthralled with everything that made up the entire scenery. I have never seen such lovely flowers, and all the arrangements are so great, she said. I hope that I can remember everything that I am seeing here. I want to do my garden just like this. I laughed to myself and wondered if the Sacred One read her being and made everything so wonderfully possible just for her. We entered the thatched roof shack and encountered the light that emanated from the overseer of this area. I was surprised to see he was seated on an average-looking white wicker chair that you would find in a middle-class house. There were other chairs that looked the same and also pictures on the walls of lovely scenery, such as the ocean and the waves with palm trees. To me, it looked like a place a surfer would live, like me. What was so amazing was the light that emanated from him. It was all around the room and went through the walls. I had the impression it went far beyond this world. RT telepathically said, the Sacred One is forever seated here, and he rarely manifests himself except for special occasions. But when he does, it is in the form that we are now witnessing. I could sense the aura of humility about him, so much more so than the Lord God, who was something else altogether. It was a strange and wonderful experience standing before this wondrous being. It was as though his appearance wavered before my vision, moving in and out while trying to attune itself to my awareness. It was more of a dreamy episode than the other entities we had encountered. His appearance was that of a rather gentle-looking man. What caught my attention the most were his gorgeous eyes, as they were very straightforward, piercing and constantly changing colors. I had the feeling he was humoring us by doing what he was. I took my time studying his being and how he presented himself. I looked at Heather and I could tell she didn't know what to consider. Then he spoke in a wondrous voice. Welcome to my humble house, all of you, he said with a soft and friendly voice. By many, I am known as the Sacred One, and so it is. But the three of you are of the special reality that very few know of. I know you, RT, and you have brought two wonderful guests with you, Heather and Dwayne. Then he looked at me very closely with his piercing gaze that felt as though he knew every part of my being. A gentle laughter sprang from him as he stood up and bowed to all of us. I am humbled by your presence. You, RT, have brought the one, he who will have the golden reality of the real sound light. I was not aware of what he was talking about, but he was the all-knowing, so I just went along with what was taking place and whatever he said. Yes, sire, said RT, we are on our way to the great reality, the all is that is all. Then it is my great pleasure and honor to greet you and the one who is the golden warrior with the real universal guides. Come in and sit with me and hear my wisdom so that you are filled with the knowledge that will assist you on your journey into the real, he said as he sat back in his chair.